There we go. Okay, now we're recording. Okay, now you want to know, and I was going to give you until August the 3rd, and I thought you'd be so happy, but no. Okay, so then you must be almost done. You almost ready?
I'm not ready. But
well, I guess you'll have to get ready very quickly.
yeah.
Okay, so when are you leaving?
I will leave August 1st or 2nd.
Right, okay, well, we'll have to do that before that. Okay. Okay.
And also,
Now,
do you have class on next Monday?
yes, we have class on Monday.
On Monday?
Yes. So we'll be meeting here next Monday and Thursday. So 2 times next week for the makeup class. So I think what we, so that's the 20th, the last day. Then you'll need to have it on the 27th. Yeah, that should be in the middle of your finals, right?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'll give you, your boy. Let's see. Well, that's why I was going to say August the 3rd. Now your leave, okay. Because I'm comfortable with August the 3rd. You can turn yours in earlier. I'm going to have to give you, because I'll need to give you a final exam. But what part of the exam was going to be to watch other people's presentations and discuss them. So, but you're already going to be gone. So I'll just have to ask you more questions. Well, that's what we'll have to do. So, and then your question, when are you're leaving? Or your summer holiday?
Yes, summer holiday.
I'm not going anywhere.
Really?
Yes. So.
Actually, I will get American visa on August 3rd. Yeah, because I'm going to go abroad, study abroad.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Very good. Where will you be studying?
Western Oregon University.
Western Oregon.
Yes.
Where is that? What town is that in?
What town? Oregon State.
I know Oregon State.
Do you know Monmouth?
Monmouth?
West side.
It's on the west side. I'm trying to think of. I mean, I know like where Oregon and Oregon State are. But okay. Well, it's nice in the summer. The winter. How long will you be there?
How long? About 10 months. 10 months.
The winters are very. They're not cold.
Yeah.
But they're very, 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 very cloudy.
Cloudy.
Yes. And it rains a lot in Oregon. A lot of it. It'll rain all the time. Anyway, you'll get used to it, maybe. I used to live in Seattle, so I know the weather there. It's very wet, cloudy winters. Anyway. Very good. Well, I hope this has been a good preparation for you. So now you would prefer then to take the when would be a good day for you?
Good day.
Well, you can do it on the 27th too, and you can watch each other's presentation.
I have
You can wait till yes.
No, I'm not going anywhere. But
Very good. Okay.
I have 2 exams on 27th.
No, that's fine. So the 3rd is fine. Is the 3rd okay?
Assad?
So yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I was thinking the 3rd, and then no, the 3rd is fine. But you need it earlier, so make it the 27th, and then you can watch each other's presentation. And we'll wait and see. Well, anyway, so that will be fine. So then what you'll need to do is very, very quickly get me both of you to get me a lot of material to tell me where you are. And in fact, the quicker you can do that, then I can talk about it on the next Thursday, and we can go over some of your material and talk about that. So if you can, the more material that you can get me over the next week, I mean, you've got some good topics, so you've got good ideas, then get out and get as much done as you can over the next 6 days. Get me as much material as you can, and then I can give you the feedback. It's going to have to be very quick. That's you're leaving early. You could say to delay your holiday for a week, but at any rate, that's since you're leaving early, then you'll have to get it all done early. Okay, we'll have to see with Yuki what his situation is, but the 3rd is fine. And that's fine, don't worry, because that was my idea that it would be the 3rd. That's fine. And then I'll probably have your grades done, probably around no later than the 10th. Yeah, it should be no later than the 10th. I have the other class I'll be giving the final exam then, but it should be, that should be somewhere around the 10th that I'd be able to get everything done. So, very good. Okay. So, let me. There was a question about FDI, and I wasn't very. I looked at that. I didn't explain it very well. In fact, yes, it wasn't explained well. And what these maps talk about is the direction of FDI, the amount and general direction of FDI, and this is per capita. So this is per person. So this is per person for each country, the amount of FDI that goes out. Now, the foreign direct investment can be any kind of it can be any kind of capital inflow and outflow. So that's the thing is that the measurement is that from that source the UN the UN statistics data where they have each country, or at least the amount of information that's available for each country. So that's where I took this data from. Now the problem with this is that it's capital flow, but we don't know whether it's a real capital investment. It might be capital that's being repatriated. It might be money that's flowing in and out because of a tax haven. So there's a lot of different reasons, and so there could be a lot of different stories for this data. For example, Libya's there's some outflow. It's below a world average, but there's some outflow, and it may be because of the conflict. People are getting their money out. Angola, here it might be that there might be foreign investors that are taking money out. And the same could be for Gabon or Liberia. That might be a little bit of actual investment by South Africa that's out external FDI. This is outward, so this is just saying these are countries that like Norway, these oil-rich countries just generate so much wealth. And remember, when exports exceed imports, so your net exports are positive, then you're likely to have your savings is greater than investment. The investment needs, the savings are far, because of there's so much revenue that's generated by oil. The money has to it has to go somewhere, and it goes out. So that's outward investment. That's probably outward investment. This is probably tax haven, all kinds of tax haven activity in Ireland. Ireland has the lowest corporate tax rate in Europe, 15% tax rate. A lot of the EU hates that, but that's and so a lot of companies put their corporate headquarter activities or significant corporate activities in Ireland. So a lot of money comes in, a lot of money goes out. So that's probably that. Swiss, same reason, it's a tax haven. A lot of banking in Switzerland. The same thing with Luxembourg. That's a tax haven. The Netherlands is a bit of a tax haven because of its corporate, because of the bilateral tax agreements that it has with many countries, including Japan. For an entity operating in Japan but who's headquartered in the Netherlands, there's no Japanese corporate tax on the activity. So there's a lot of companies, you may set up a company here, and if it's actually operating, if its headquarters are in the Netherlands, there's a big reduction in corporate tax that's due in Japan. So that's very favorable. And you got a company like Philips. If you know Philips, is a big international company. It's headquartered it's a Dutch company, headquartered in the Netherlands. So that's and it has a lot of operations here. It probably reduces their tax, gives them an advantage on operating. So those are probably some of these explanations. Eastern Europe, of course, needs a lot of capital. So that's why there's very little outflow. The U.S. has a fair bit of outflow. It's just a lot of inflow. Canada, because of resources, it's probably a bit like Norway. That just says Australia has less outflow. South America, Chile has some outward flow, fairly wealthy country, a lot of trade. These countries are growing. They need a lot of investment. There's not a lot of outflow. You can see that's oil. That's Trinidad and Tobago. That's an oil-rich country. That little country right there. Asia, Thailand, and Malaysia have outflow. Japan has had outflow for this period because it hasn't been an attractive place to invest, and companies that have invested money have been taking their money out, and also for Japanese companies investing abroad. That's that, and the same thing with Korea. China's interesting because I would have thought that this would be a lot lighter. I would have thought that because Chinese investment is very high, but it's such a big country. It's so big that that might be the explanation. I know a lot of money is certainly going out, and certainly the Chinese government is worried about money fleeing the country, and so they have a lot of capital controls, and they're worried about money going out. But that has that's the case. I mentioned these are the two oil-rich countries. Again, it's the same thing as with Norway. That situation. Less in the case of Saudi Arabia. It's just it's a big country in terms of population. Its population has grown quite rapidly, and so this is actually becoming a fairly major country in terms of population. Where these two countries have almost no. The native population of Qatar and Kuwait's almost zero. It's a few 100,000, and most of the people who live there are just guest workers. So Israel is out. This is again a tax haven, Cyprus. So Cyprus is a tax haven, and needless to say, with all these wars, you're not generating much wealth to send out. This is inward. This is inward FDI. That's investment in the country. That's Equatorial Guinea, a lot of oil-rich country. You can do business there. They're pretty well. The people that run the country are pretty well organized to do business. They take all the money for themselves, but they're pretty well organized. So that country gets a lot of inbound per capita in investment. Again, it has a lot of oil. And the same Gabon, a fair amount. Congo is an interesting situation. I don't quite understand the Congo. Certainly here, Namibia is mineral. That would be mineral investment. Botswana is a little bit lighter. There's certainly a lot of minerals there, although it's below the world average. So that's and Botswana is not a big country. So that just tells you there's not a lot of inflow. Europe, inward FDI, a lot of international, just because it's oil production. So international companies that are going to be investing in order to operate the oil fields. Iceland has seen some inward FDI. They went through a financial crisis, quite a crazy financial crisis in the last decade. So that's probably money that's beginning to go back into the country. Ireland, of course, because it's a tax haven. Belgium, Luxembourg, tax haven. I don't understand what's going on with Belgium. Let's see. The U.S. is just an attractive place to invest. The same thing with Canada. Australia is a lot of inward investment in the mining industry. That's what's going on there. Your mining industry, and I might have mentioned, there's a huge mine that was just approved several weeks ago. Big mine in Queensland, about somewhere in there. Coal mine, one of the biggest coal mines in the world. That's the kind of thing. It's one of the most important countries in the world in the mining industry. So there's a lot of money that goes into Australia for that industry. I have to check that figure. Yeah, and you can see Japan. It's one of the lowest in the world in inward FDI in this 5-year period, 2010 to 2014. One of the lowest in the world. It's just it became quite an unattractive place for international investment. Very low returns. It goes through periods. Japan goes through periods where it becomes very attractive, not attractive. Just in this period, it wasn't. Brunei, again, oil, gas production. So it's an attractive place for, this is probably a lot of Japanese investment right there. And probably the same thing for Malaysia. There's Singapore, tax haven, again. If we had Hong Kong here, that would be bright blue. Hong Kong would be really, really just as bright blue as, if you could see that, that's actually bright blue. The inward FDI, of course, because of the oil industry, and the same there. And you can see that also in the Central Asian countries, Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan there. So that's that, and I just wanted, because that was confusing, so I apologize for that. And let's get now going. We're going to talk today about, okay, I'm going to go over, oh, right, don't tell me. I don't want to see that. Okay. Now I want to spend the last several classes kind of going over some materials to kind of make a presentation so you kind of see some of the things that I'm looking for in your presentation. This doesn't mean that it's going to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. I just want to give you a kind of a sense of the kinds of things that you may wish to consider in your presentation. And I'm going to talk about, and as I say, it's what you could do. Let's see if I had, okay. What you could do, and I'm going to talk about Belarus. And there's no reason other. Why did I pick Belarus? Nothing really. It's when I did this example, the main reason for picking is because I figured no one was going to pick Belarus, so I'll pick something that nobody's going to pick, and a country that you probably had never heard of before you came to this class. And so now I'll talk about it. And so now you'll learn a lot about Belarus. And the other thing here is, there's a lot of some interesting problems that you might run into in your data. So the first thing that I put up here is GDP components at current prices. Current prices means what's called nominal. Do you understand what nominal prices mean? Let me write that on the board. When I say current prices, we're talking about nominal prices. Nominal means it's the amount of money in the economy now. It's what's in the economy now in 2012, in 2013, 2009. So when you look at this, one of the things you'll see is just look at these total GDP, 36. That's in billions of Belarusian rubles, too. I don't know what a Belarusian ruble looks like, but they apparently have them. And so 36, that would be 36 trillion, 565 billion. It's a big number, except it probably doesn't really add up to very much, but it's a big number. But watch these numbers. 36, 49, 65, 79, 97, 129, 137, 164, 297, 536, 49, and 778. Okay. Massive. This country is either massively growing or else it has massive inflation. And I haven't heard that Belarus is massively growing. So this is probably inflation. So this is the difference between nominal and real. That's nominal. Nominal is, that's in current prices. That's what it says, current prices. That's, we use the term nominal. And then real means we adjust for inflation. So how do we do that? Well, you have to, typically you have, in much of this the adjustment is made in the tables. They have tables that do that. That's the table 1.2. This is table 1.1. Okay, so if you go think of the data, they have it's table 1. This is table 1.1. That table 1.2 has what's called real, and it's adjusted for changes in prices. So that's adjusted for changes in prices. So. And clearly, you just look at this and you can see the prices have gone. So what? So that's what we. This is. We want to examine the output changes over time. But so if there are changes in price, if there are changes in prices, you can't make a comparison. See, that's the thing is. Because the prices have clearly changed, we can't compare these numbers. It's meaningless to compare them. It doesn't make any sense. If I compare this number, what does this number have to do with that number? This is 20 times bigger. It's 20 times bigger than this number. Does that mean the economy's grown 20 times in 11 years? Probably not. So that's what we're going to do. Now in some countries, produces what's called a constant price time series, using a new base year in each year, using the previous year as the base year. Okay. Now, and for some reason, some countries do this. I think Belarus does it. Brazil is another one. I don't know why they do it, but they might do it to make it harder for people to figure out what the real economy is. You know, you have to do some more calculations. So that's what I'm going to show you here. And as I say, you have to be very careful when you look at your data in the national accounts data. You have to make sure that you're doing it. That you're getting prices that you can make what we call an apples to apples comparison. It's an apple and it's apple. It's a bigger apple, okay? But because if it's an apple and a banana, you can't make any. There's no comparison. And here, that is apples and bananas and orangutans. It's really you can't make any comparison. So here's what I had to do. What I had to do in this case is I had to go take. This isn't very hard. But it's one of these things where you have to keep mentally focused. You have to focus and say, okay, what do you just to keep clear what you're doing. And so the World Bank has a database on price changes. So it has a database on year-on-year price changes, and it says. In 2003, prices rose 30.69%. than the previous year. So that was the inflation rate in Belarus in 2003. 2004, they had a 22.68% inflation rate. And you can see these are high inflation rates. By world, these are really high. It's 10, 13, 21. That's a little bit less, but even that's not low. But look at this, 2011, 71.18, 75.44. That's crazy, that's out of control. That's out of control inflation. It means the money supply is increasing dramatically, and prices are responding by going up dramatically. So what they did in the Belarus data, they kind of cover that up. They cover up the impact. So as an analyst, I had to make my own table of taking these prices, making an index, which I could then use to create a table of real GDP. Okay, can you follow what I'm doing here? What I have here is I have a situation where I have nominal data. I have good nominal. So let's say it's good. I have bad real. It's bad data. Okay, so what I have to do then is to make it good data, I have to create my own inflation series. So I have to create my own, and I'm doing that by using this data. So the way to do it, well, just think about it. I'm going to call 2002 equal to 100. It's just, I can call it 100, I could call it 1, I could call it 1,000,000, but 100, it's just, people usually use 100. So if I say 2002 is 100, and inflation increased 30.69%, then 2003 equals 130.69. It's 30.69% higher. Then 22.68% higher is 160.32 in 2004. 160.32. Now what this then is what's called a GDP deflator. Right. Okay. Right. It's called a GDP deflator. What a GDP deflator does, we can use this if we divide, say, 2003 by this number, 130.69, we can then compare it with 2002. But if we divide 2004 by this number, 160.32, we can then compare 2004 with 2003. And then it's real. And then that's what's called an apples to apples comparison. Okay. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. And you may or may not run into this problem, but I had students last year that did. So we'll see what you have in your data. It might be fine, but anyway, this is the kind, you run into these kinds of problems. So that's part of it is, I want you to be in touch with me so that if you're running into some problem with the data, okay. For example, you were interested earlier in the pearl industry. When we looked at it, it was clear that it didn't make any sense. Well, you can't do that. Or in this case, there's a problem, so you need to, this is how you solve the problem. These are the kind of tricks that an analyst needs to learn if you're going to analyze something. What you need to do is understand your data. You always need to understand what's going on with your data. So that's what I've done is I've created this table. This this GDP deflator time series. So when I divide, so I'll take, for example, that 130.69, and I'll divide this number by 130.69, and when I do that, and I take, like here, 2013, and I divide that by 1,233.7, if I divide that number by 1,233.7, then I can compare this number with this number. Then I can make a comparison. Then I can see what the real change in the economy is. Then the real picture comes out. And that's one of the things as an analyst, what you have to do many times, you have to look, you get data, there's something wrong with it. Believe me, quite often, and this is the thing in economics, a lot of data is not good, or it has problems. It's dirty. It's not clean. It's not clean data. Now we live here in a country that has a lot of good data. People do their best to get really good, to get it as accurate as possible. So you get that in this country. That's not true in a lot of countries. It's so you can have these kinds of problems, but these are the ways you go around it. So when I did that, I make that adjustment. And what I said was at constant 2002 prices, I made my index at 2002 equals 100. So I'm comparing to prices that in prices in 2002, I called that 100, created that time series for what's called the GDP deflator, used each of those numbers to divide the nominal current prices in order to get this table of at constant 2002 price. Constant prices is what means real. What it means is it's as if the prices did not change. That's what constant means. When we say constant or real, what we mean is that the prices have not changed. We're analyzing it, and it's as if the prices did not change. So if the price did not change, then it would look like this. So now we can make a comparison. And in fact, we look and we can see the 27,979 and 11 years later, 53,450. Well, we can see the economy has grown. It's almost double. It is almost double in 11 years. So it's grown. It's grown. And now what we can do is we can analyze what's going on year to year. And we can compare and say, okay, now we can say this is what happened. This is now we can tell the story of this economy. Because with this, we can't tell any story. The story doesn't make any sense. Okay. We can go over these components, and we can see, we can see the overall GDP is about double. So it's not 2 times, just about 100%. Okay? You can see the consumption, 15 billion Belarusian rubles in real in 2002 prices. 27,050, a little bit less than double. So it hasn't quite increased as much. Okay, so that's the first thing we can see. We can see it's increased, but not quite. So consumption has not quite increased as much. The NIPIsh, you can just kind of ignore that. It's always a small part of. They have it. It's not important. Investment though, about 7,000. The number goes to 17,000. We see over 20,000. So investment is going up. So one of the things that you might suggest is, well, we've seen a lot of investment. And we might think, well, now where has that investment come from? Has that investment come from abroad? Is it foreign investment? Is it domestic investment? So we'll want to look at that picture. Government, about 6,000, and you can see, well, it's hardly grown. And this is one of these interesting things is that I mentioned to you, this is considered, Belarus is considered to be the last dictatorship in Europe. Lukashenko is kind of a strong man. It's considered to be a fairly repressive government. He rules with quite. It's kind of the old style Russian. Old style Russian. In fact, Belarus they're Russian. They're ethnic Russians. They're a little bit different, but they're basically it's an ethnic Russian Slavic people. It's a Russian culture, and they're still running the government as if the Soviet Union never collapsed. You know, it's and this was also this was one of the republics of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had 15 republics. Well, Belarusia was one of the republics of the old Soviet Union. So you see, government though hasn't grown very much, which is interesting. Exports, we can see kind of a big increase and then it falls off. Imports, again, but not quite a big. It's growth and a decline, and we want to look at that. The discrepancy tells you that there's some problems in the data. This is quite often if things don't balance, because that's what you have to do. These accounts, it's like accounting. Things have to balance, and sometimes they don't balance. And so when they don't, they just put a number. It's, well, it doesn't balance. There's the difference. And that's the discrepancy. Discrepancy tells you how bad, you know, how bad the number is. And they're saying it's like somewhere where 1-2% of GDP. You know, that's it. So now what we want to do is now look. We've seen. See that? This and where does this? Financial crisis. That's the impact of the financial crisis. Basically, the economy almost zero growth between 2008 2009. So now we can say, okay, this is the financial crisis. The world's had a financial crisis. So whenever you analyze any country over the last 15 years, one of the things you're going to look right at. What happened in the financial crisis? What impact did the financial crisis have on that country? And we can see it here again. Notice that it's very little. It's about 1%. 1% growth, 2012 to 2013. We also had a lot of inflation. Remember what I showed you earlier? A lot of inflation. So when you correct, this big chunk of inflation there, so it looks like the inflation might have been having an impact. So when you get real prices out of that, you get very little real growth. Look at investment. Let's see what happens. Look at this rapid growth, 2006, 2007, like a lot of countries, a big increase in investment, more than a doubling from early in the decade to 2007, 2008, a big increase in investment. And it kind of plateaus, then it kind of just straightens out. It doesn't really shrink. Now, a number of countries in Europe actually had big declines. So Belarus didn't do too badly. Now, if you also might remember, it's a dollar. It has a dollar peg. Its currency is pegged to the dollar. So that means they might even be using dollars. Especially when you're getting inflation like that, it's probably people are going to start using dollars, U.S. dollars, rather than the domestic currency. So you might have something like that. But at any rate, it actually wasn't so hard hit. So whatever impact it didn't have there. And look here, exports didn't really change very much. And then we had a big jump, 2011, 2012. And so we'll want to take a look at that. and see what's going on. It looks like there's an increase in investment, an increase in exports. Well, it might look like that country's getting foreign investment. That might be because of foreign investment. And if I had to take a guess, where would the investment come from? Well, it's Russia. Russia wants to have an impact on its the former Soviet republics. In many ways, Russia still considers them as part of Russia in one way or another, especially the European republics. Moldova wants to break. A lot of people in Moldova want to be part of Russia. And the problem is the Ukraine. The Ukraine is between Moldova and Russia, so that's a problem. Eastern Ukraine wants to be part of Russia. So it's quite possible. We've seen an increase in investment, increase in exports. It might be related to foreign direct investment. We want to look at that. But that's the kind of thing that when you look at these kind of numbers, you just kind of start thinking, you always want to develop hypotheses. You always want to develop ideas. You want to start thinking, what could be the story here? What's the possible story? And because we know the financial crisis, okay, there's some impact, but it's not major. Investment continued to increase. It looks like the exports increased in 2011, 2012. Imports, though, kind of start declining. Here, they fall off along with exports. There's kind of a bit of a slowdown in the economy. In inflation, it might, as I say, it could be the story here. It could be inflation. The story here could be foreign investment, possibly from Russia. The story here is that it did okay in the financial crisis. The financial crisis didn't have a big impact. So those seem to be some things, ideas that we can get from looking at this data. Okay. So as I said, one of the I wanted just to give you so you could see. There's Belarus. Right there, it's definitely below average, and there's Russia, so it's right next to Russia. So you can see it's right there. Yeah, that's Moldova. So Moldova is right. Ukraine is between there, and these people. That's a country that wants to be part of Russia, or at least there's an element of it. Anyway, getting back to Belarus, as you can see, its per person gross domestic product is kind of lower than all the countries around it, including Russia. So it's a relatively poor country. So we've got kind of a dictatorial government, relatively poor country, right next to Russia. It may have some things that Russia, though, might be interested in investing in. So now, just to confirm, what I've done here is now I've got the year-on-year percentage changes in the GDP components for 2004, 2014. So now year-on-year. So just to confirm the picture that I discussed, just to give it now more precise numbers. We see consumption, and these are real changes. Quite rapid increase in consumption, and consumption in fact is growing just about GDP, maybe a little bit faster. In this part of the decade. In the crisis, though, consumption falls off, as does GDP. GDP slows, the consumption falls off, and then it slows, and then it shrinks. So consumption shrinks in 2011. The overall GDP doesn't shrink, but consumption does. And the reason why the GDP expands is because there's a big expansion in exports. So exports increase, so the GDP grows, but consumers have pulled back. Consumer spending falls. So there's a little bit of a mixed picture. Exporters are doing well. Consumers, the average person isn't doing so well, and they're reducing their expenditure. So there is a bit of, it looks like there's a bit of a problem. So again, we know there's a lot of inflation. Consumers are, so there's some impact there. Investment, we can see this big increases, 2006, 7, 8, but this was when the party was raging, the global cap investment party. So money is flowing everywhere, and suddenly it stops in 2009. 2009, it stops, but then it renews again in 2010, but again shrinks in 2011, 2012, up 2013, down 2014. It's a lot of volatility. So you're beginning to get a picture, country with a lot of inflation, a little bit, some consumer problems, a lot of volatility in investment. It looks like there's a bit of at least economic instability in this country. So I think you begin to see that when you have these numbers and you put them in and you can start making the story, and you can start making the story. And one of the things that I want you to, one of the reasons why I want you to do this do this and go to this first. When you go here and you see what the story, you get a story in your mind. The numbers tell you a story. Then if you go and you look up and you try to find articles on something, about this country, about this place, now you have an idea that's based on this. And quite often what you'll do is you'll see what somebody writes. It's either not, it might confirm what you say, or you realize that the writer has no idea what they're talking about. And that's just as often. And the bad thing about that is that if you read something, and I think one of the messages I want to tell you is that if you read anything in the press, don't ever trust it. It doesn't. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad information. It might be. It depends. It depends on where it comes from, and whether, you know, if you're reading something probably from the Nikkei Keizai Shimbun, that's probably, you know, they're trying to get a story. They're trying to analyze it. The people that are reading it are trying to make business decisions. So probably if you're going to read in trusting something, you have a better chance of trusting something that's in, say, a financial rather than a regular newspaper when you're looking at this. But again, you always have to be careful, and you have to get your idea from here. Make something clear in your mind before you go out and you look and find information. Get a story in your mind, and then you can see. Then that'll help, and quite often it'll help you confirm, and then it'll help you to fill in the details and confirm what you found. Or it may be that you've, in fact, you'll find out that what people are writing is nonsense. So, so that's kind of the idea here. At any rate, getting back to our story, the exports, we talked this big increase. 1 year, a big increase, and then it kind of just levels off again. So you want to find out, well, what happened? This is a huge increase in real, and did they open up an oil well or gas? Did they start doing that, start exporting gas? Something big happened in that year. Something comes online, some big thing happens, and then there's not much change. Well, that's a big drop. It goes down, so it definitely goes down here. But something big happens here, and of course here, 2013. Well, what happened? That's 25% decline in exports. That's 25%. It's a big decline. So, and in fact, if something goes up 60% and then goes down 25%, up 60, so 160 is 160. 25% is 40. So you're back to 120. So the total increase is 20%. What you never do is say 60 minus 25. That's what you gotta go plus 60, down 25, it's plus 20. So you have to keep that in mind. You can see imports also grew. That's not surprising. It just means there's more money flowing in the economy. So now we're getting a little bit of a picture of it. And now what I've done here is I put this as component share of GDP. So now you just want to see, to get a feel, this is what we want to compare with other countries to get an idea of how Belarus might compare with other economies internationally. So consumption, we're a little bit above 50%. This is a bit low by, let's say, the standards of Japan, certainly the United States. Japan is about 57, 58% of consumption, component of consumption. It's a little bit lower, it's right around 50%. It's kind of not surprising for kind of a developing economy. This is not surprising. Investment, remember we talked a little bit about China last week. I talked about the huge amount of investment as a component of GDP. Well, you look here, this investment as a share of GDP is pretty high. So again, this is the kind of thing, this is still a little bit high, and then it gets into the 30s, low 40s, 2010, 41.2%. It's still the mid to upper 30s. This is high. This is pretty high by international standards. That tells you it's developing economy. The economy is developing. It's getting investment. It's a positive thing. It's getting investment. As I mentioned, it's an oppressive government, but as a share of GDP, the government's been shrinking. You know, does that mean that it's becoming less oppressive? I don't know. That's a good question, and that's kind of something with the geopolitical politics and economics can be a little bit. You may not have a clear answer, but that is quite interesting that the government share of output has shrunk. It's fallen during this period. Exports, we said export-oriented country, 80% of GDP. That's a big. That's the kind of numbers that you see for like a Singapore, a really small economy. These are roaring high numbers for a country that's a little bit bigger. So it's definitely an export-oriented economy. It's like I said, it's a developing economy. There's not a lot of consumer spending's a little bit low. A lot of exports. Exports minus imports, we can see these figures are all negative, almost all negative, a little bit positive here, -4, -6, -4, -6, -8, -11, -14, right up to 2010. So X minus 9 imports. Well, what does that mean? That means that domestic savings is less than investment. So that's the first thing. That's that thing. We'll get that. I'll write that down just so you can, just so you can see it again. As I say, your net exports equals savings minus investment. So that's from now on. I hope, and when you see net exports, that's what you think. You immediately think that. And you think that, you're thinking something that very few people do. Very, very few people do, and you're thinking correctly about it. And so then you can start saying the picture, the real picture, what's really going on. So that means they're getting capital inflow. So we're seeing a lot of investment. We're seeing a lot of investment. It's becoming a bigger and bigger part of the economy. But you're having this, that means there's a lot of capital inflow. It's got to be getting a lot of FDI. So we'll want to see the FDI figures. If we can get FDI figures, foreign direct investment figures, we'll want to take a look at that and see what's going on, where is that coming from. So now we're beginning to get a picture. We're beginning to get a picture now. So you could take what I've said so far, you write a nice report that talks about what's going on. You have a sense of what's going on in the economy, what the growth has been, that it looks like you're getting inward flows of capital. You've got a lot of volatility. We know there's a lot of inflation. You could tell a good story. There's a story that you can now tell. And part of that story is our hypotheses, ideas about what's driving this. So you can see what the purpose of this. We're getting, now we can tell a story, and then we want to fill in the details and get information that helps us to fill out what the story is, because we've developed it on our own. And that's the thing that I want you to try to get you to do here, is to learn how to do this on your own, so then you have your own idea, get the information, and then if somebody tells you, somebody else you might find, oh, they're saying such and such, and you might find, well, I've done this analysis, and why are you saying that? You know, that can be very valuable. That can be very valuable if you have if you have that. At any rate, my next thing is I wanted to compare for 2013, just like, as I mentioned, about these components. So just to compare with the U.S. and Japan, talk consumption, it's actually 59.6, U.S. 66.7, Belarus 49%. So you can see a lot smaller. Investment, a lot bigger share. Investment, a lot bigger share. Government, about kind of in the same range. Exports, though, big exports and imports are big as a percentage of the economy. And again, one of the things it tells us, it's a small economy. It's a small, but the country isn't that small. The country is a fairly reasonably sized country. So it's just that it's a developing. Its GDP is relatively small compared to other countries. So, and it's growing, it's getting investment. It appears to be, we can kind of say, yeah, it looks like a developing economy. A developing, emerging economy. So that's kind of the picture. And we can say it's emerging because there's growth, it's getting investment. The economy is growing, it really is growing, people's lives are getting better. You know, it's whatever else about the government, people's lives are getting better. You know, so overall, incomes overall, real incomes have increased. There's probably very likely an increase in real incomes in the country. Looks like a reasonably positive picture. All things considered, from the start to the finish, 11-year period, it looks like it's okay. The country's doing okay. It's a developing economy. So now I want to go a little, now the current account, the interesting thing about the current account is, and this is especially true for developing economies. Now we can start getting a picture of what, you know, start to get a picture of the international flows. You know, starting to get that picture. The current account data is quite often not very interesting for countries like Japan, the US. But for a country like this, it might tell us a lot more. So now we've got, as I said, the exports minus imports. We know that it's fairly negative. Okay. Then we have property income from the rest of the world. We can see that there's a growth in property income from the rest of the world. It's quite a fairly significant increase, although some of that is going to be inflation. inflation driven. Property income to the rest of the world, that's a big increase. That's foreign investment. It's coming into the country. Foreign workers are coming into the country, which probably work people from other countries, maybe Russia, again, it might be Russia. Current transfers, look at that big increase. That's capital inflow. That's capital inflow and capital outflow. So there's a lot of investment, inflow, outflow. There's a lot of flow here now. So right in here, now so we can see there's a substantial increase in investment. There's a lot of money that's flowing in and out, in and out to the, as I say, from. This is all going to be people coming into the country and working. So what the picture here is, you've got an economy, not a lot of connection with the rest of the world, kind of on its own a bit. I mean, it was exporting and all, but now more integrated. It's a picture of a more integrated economy. There's more flow. There's more flow, much more flow in and out of the economy. You see the current account now. Look at how big numbers are getting. Are getting quite big. But remember, we'll want to compare that with GDP, because this is based on this is the current accounts. This is based on nominal current prices. So we'll want to just check with this and compare that with the percentage of GDP, so that we can make sure that this is really, that we're really making a kind of apples to apples comparison. So in this case, what we're doing, we're using the nominal data, but when we compare it as a percentage of GDP, we can make apples to apples comparison even though we're using nominal data. So this is a kind of trick that that as analysts we can use in order that we are making apples to apples, because we're now looking as a percentage of GDP. And so now you can see exports minus imports, they're big capital in, a net inflow. It looks like there's a net inflow. You're getting this, now you can see here, this tells you whether the degree that the economy is becoming more connected with the rest of the world. 0.7, 0.6% property income from and to the rest of the world. It's fairly small, fairly small. Now it's increasing to the rest of the world. Investment, people coming in, they're sending their money out. See how those numbers now are increasing, so that's an indication of an increase. Here's the big one though, current transfers. So current transfers, this is actual capital inflow, capital outflow, fairly less than 2% of GDP. It's still quite small here, but look at the big increase. 8% to the rest of the world in 2011. Big capital outflows there. The current account, you can see it's about 13, 15. These are big negative numbers. That's a current account. That's a lot of, it's quite negative. There's a lot of capital that's flowing into, it's just telling you there's a lot of capital flowing into the country. So now we're to compute the balance of payments. And here's what's and here's one of the interesting things is that when you do this analysis, and you will see this, you have to be careful, is that these are the numbers that I get, and I end up with this balance of payments. And then they have another line that says this is the balance of payment. So there's quite often a discrepancy. And you can see here some of it's big. Some of the discrepancy is quite big. Who knows? So that's the part that makes the picture a little bit gray. So this is what I calculate based on the figures. And then this is what they say is the actual balance of payments. Well, where all that money come, what's going on? I don't know. They're not telling you, you know. So that tells you there's a bit, it's gray. What's really going on? There might be money disappearing. Maybe people are stealing it. Maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe there's massive amounts of money laundering by Russians, or who, you know, it's right next to there. Maybe, you know, this could be all kinds of stuff going on, and it's not recorded. So, you know, there's just nothing we can do about it. But you can kind of. That's a good question to ask. So, where did all that? This says that there was this inflow, but they say there's only this inflow. What's that? Somebody's not telling the truth. So, you know, as I say, it's a corrupt country. You know, that's part of it. That's a corrupt country, and you get this kind of stuff. And that's one thing you want to do. You want to check. You want to check and do it, as I've said, the way I showed you how to do it. This is what I did. I took the data and I calculated at this, and then they said this is it. This is the real balance of payments. You know, so that's important. As an analyst, that's important, so you can question. It's like you're doing. You're doing. It's like you're auditing. You're like an auditor. As an analyst, you're also auditing. You're asking questions. Well, these numbers don't make sense. You know, what's going on? And that's what you might want to look. It's another question. Well, that's 16 billion rubles off. What's going on there? Then we want to look also to see, well, how big as a share of GDP is that discrepancy? And actually, it's 2.1%. And we've seen, so when you make an apples to apples, it's kind of, you've seen this, it kind of happens, so maybe it's not a big deal. It looked like a big number, but okay, well, you kind of get these kind of numbers. It's kind of typical, it's a typical difference. It might be just, maybe it's just bad data. That's it, that's as good, that's the best they can do, and you're seeing this. But one interesting thing though is that if you average this, let's see, 3.8, 1.9, 3.1, 5, 7, 8, 10, 4. It's biased. It's biased to about plus 1% a year. So there's a bias there. You know, it's not. If this looked like a random number that was around 0, you might say it's just data, but it's a number that's averaging positive. So there's a bias. So why is the discrepancy between balance of payments and actual balance of payments such that the actual balance is usually about 1% higher than what you calculate? Something's missing. On average, something's missing. We get back. There's the balance of payment. As I say, the balance of payments. That's big capital inflows. So that's what we're seeing there. Big capital inflows. So now we want to say, okay, can we find out where that came from? That's where now you turn to the FDI data, because the FDI data, if you can, we can use that, and we can find. Let's see now. Okay, what I did was I know. The reason why I did this, I changed the actual balance of payments in rubles, and I did that. Let's see, did I use? Yeah, and I used their figure. So I used their figure. I probably should use both. But at any rate, so that was the ruble US dollar exchange rate. You can see there's the exchange rate. It's fairly, this looks like a dollar. Remember I said it was a dollar peg? That the Belarusian dollar, it was pegged to the dollar? Well, that's the peg. See that? It's about the same. They were keeping it the same. So they're keeping it the same, and then the problem is then they had to adjust it. Then they had to adjust it again. Now they're just adjusting it all the time. It's not much of a peg. There's just so much inflation. If you're inflating your economy, then the value of your currency is dropping because it's just increasing the supply of money. So the money is getting cheaper compared to another country that the money supply isn't growing as much. It's just this demand-supply. It's a very simple demand-supply relationship. So then what I've done, I've changed that into US dollars. So now I've got the actual balance of payments in US dollars. And why? Because the foreign direct investment data is in US dollars. So that's what I have to change that into. That's the kind of things you have to keep in mind when you do this kind of analysis is, okay, so you've got the actual balance of payments. Now I have it in dollars. And as I say, maybe the thing I would want to do is compare my numbers with that, and that might be interesting as well. But now I can go and look at the FDI data and see how that compares, and see the reported FDI, because that might compare. That should be roughly. Let's see. It's a little bit. There's about. There's about the same. And then I put Russia. Remember I talked about Russia. Wanted to see how much of this might be Russia. And see, most of it is, at least half of it, in some cases, most of it is Russia. So Russia is a substantial investor in the country. It might be in the agricultural sector. It might be in the, and they might have gas. It could be in gas, that's the kind of thing. Well, we can still check. We can see there's other data in the current account data that we can check to see. Well, can we see where this might be coming from? So this is value added by industry. So your GDP numbers are based on value added. So these are the components by sector to overall value added. Okay, yeah, is that turning up to 20? That's fine. Is everybody fine? Yeah. Okay. So you can see the totals. This is kind of similar to the GDP because most of the GDP comes from this. This is the output in real. It's the wealth that's created. That's what GDP is. It's the wealth that's created. So what we want to do now is look at the individual sectors to see where this might be taking place. We've seen, let's see, these figures though, let me just make sure that what I'm doing, yeah. So right, I do it by, we can't really make a comparison here because of the way of inflation and all. So in order to make some kind of apples to apples comparison now, I've done it this way. And so, what we want to see is, well, do we see any particular growth, any sectors that are growing that might tell us where that investment, that increase in investment, where is the investment flowing into? The sectors that are growing more rapidly may be sectors that are getting more foreign investment. So, see, agriculture, 8.56374. It hasn't changed. It's actually shrunk near the end. So agriculture doesn't look like agriculture is where it's getting the investment. Mining, that would be if there's oil, gas, anything like that. No, so it's not mining. Manufacturing, 23, 25, 25, 25, 24, 26, 23, 24, 28, 26. Looks like there's some. That's probably part of the story. Investment in manufacturing, the manufacturing sector. So FDI, that's probably FDI in the manufacturing sector. Utilities has actually declined. Construction, kind of a construction burst. Maybe retail trade, maybe a little bit of retail trade. Maybe they're buying, somebody's coming in and buying some retail companies. Here's definitely an increase in what's called FIRE, that's finance, insurance, real estate. That's what fire means when you see this. It's not burning, it means that it means finance, insurance, and real estate. So that's the financial sector, and that's grown. The value added, so the financial sector grew after 2009, and that's interesting because it grew after the financial crisis. So there's some, it appears that there's some investment in the financial sector. We see government has declined, social services sector has declined. So it's not quite what I might have expected. Maybe I was thinking maybe oil and gas, but that's clear that's not it. Some of it might be in manufacturing, some of it might be in retail, some of it is probably in the finance sector. That's kind of interesting. It's a kind of broad, it looks like it might be some broad investment. And so now what we want to do is see the what's called fixed capital formation. And this will tell us what kind of actual investment, because this is just telling us the growth in output, but these are actual investment figures. So this tells us investment figures. The figures are missing for 2010. There was no data for the mining sector, but I don't think that's a problem, unless they're all lying and they're not telling us anything about the mining sector, but that might not be the case. So again, this is in rubles, so we know there's a lot of inflation, so we have to be careful. It's not easy to make this comparison. But these are the raw numbers, and then we'll want to look at the GDP. I'm sorry, the totals as part of as the components to get a sense of of the fixed capital formation, if there's any sectors that there's a particular concentration in. And what we see, well, we've got certainly not in agriculture. Manufacturing, it's pretty steady. It's pretty steady throughout. Utilities, not much. Construction, a little bit. Retail trade, there's definitely some increase in retail trade. Transport, telecom, not really. The finance, it's interesting. It's not a clear picture. It's hard to tell if there's any particular concentration from these figures. So that's the kind of and then basically your right. I was going to have. I don't know why that's doing that. It might be this particular file's contaminated or something. Did yours come out? Did yours come out okay? No? Right. Right, okay. So basically the idea here is we've asked a lot of questions. We've gotten I think a very good way to do an analysis. As an analyst, as an economist, as someone who's studying economies, and if you were studying here and we're studying international economies, that the thing that we want to do, the thing that we want to do is, as I say, develop our own view, develop our understanding. I've developed an understanding of the economy. See where there's some questions. See what sectors might be happening. Develop a series of questions, and then go out. Now I can go out with this knowledge. Now I can go out and find out, fill in those figures, and say, oh, such and such a company did such and such. In fact, when I did this, I found out, yes, there was some insurance company that was purchased, and some manufacturing companies got investment. I think in general, I think the picture here is an economy that's it's getting a fair amount of capital and direct investment inflow. International investors, not just Russians. That's also another interesting picture. It's dominated by Russia, or let's say there's a lot of the investment is Russia, which is not surprising. It's right next to Russia. But other countries are also investing. We can see that by going back, oops, going there. See the other FDI inflow. We can see other countries. It's kind of a roughly, it's not 50%, but it's probably about 40%. So other countries are also investing, probably European, other EU countries. This is probably EU countries. Germany, that would be a country I would look right away. Germany investing in, Germany of course is a big investor. It's got, it usually has current account surpluses. It's a powerful manufacturing country. It's a powerful country. It has a lot of influence. Like Japan, it's spread its influence economically in the last 70 years. And it might very well be a lot of German investment. But as I say, now I have all the questions. Now I have the questions, and now I can go out and start doing my research and finding out who's invested in what sectors and why. And that fills out the report. So you see, this kind of, this is the kind of general approach. I'm not saying that you have to do the same thing. I would encourage you to take an approach that, certainly I have a lot of experience, so I can go out and get all this data, put all this together, run the numbers real quick, get some ideas, because I've done this for this kind of stuff for years and years, and then I go out and I look for something. So, you know, I don't expect you to do all of that, but I did have students that did something fairly similar last year that came up with some very good analysis, some very I was very impressed with what some of the students were able to come up with. So that's the kind of approach. It's an idea. You can look at what you're doing and see what, you know, and as I say, this is the kind of, you have enough capability to at least get this kind of information and paint some picture. You're not going to get a complete picture, but you'll be able to paint. You have enough tools now. This is not, it's not complex in terms of, you just need some basic tools in order to understand this. Of course, also, you know, the deeper that you go in your studies, then you're going to learn more and more about this. But this is a good way to start. I think this is a very good way to start doing analysis. Start getting used to working with data, learning how to tell a story. That's what you're looking for, what the story is. Ask questions, find out what the data is might be telling us. And then the next step is to go out and find more information that fills the picture in. So that's the kind of thing that I would be it's an example. I think next week Monday. Let's see. Probably going to talk about India. I think I'll talk about India, and this will be as another example. I'm really excited. I'm very excited these days about India. It's just clearly an economy that really is. I think what's going to happen there in the next 10 years is going to be not the same thing as what happened in China, but I think you're going to see some major changes. So it's kind of I think it's an exciting time. I went over this last year and I wasn't so sure. I wasn't really impressed a year ago by India. Now I'm impressed just because there's so much going on. Because a year ago, when you looked at the data and you said, well, it just looks like a big version of Pakistan. So what's the big deal? You know, Pakistan is no big deal. So it just looks like a bigger Pakistan. I think that's beginning to change. it's beginning to change. So I think what I'll be doing in my next lecture is I'll talk about that. But again, to give you some feel for some of the things that you can do in your own work. So I think I'll close there. I think we just have a couple more. Yeah. If you have any questions about your own work, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look at. Did anyone send me anything this morning?
I sent.
Okay.
This morning.
I know some people sent me. I was just busy preparing. I was preparing my lecture for my other class. I didn't get a chance to look at that. But thanks for that, and I'll get back to you very quickly. This really now, especially for you guys, it's got to be every day. You got to do every day, and I know you got other classes, so that's why I wanted to give you a little more time. But you know, you're going away. So this is that's Shogunai. You know, it's.
そうしないともうできないの。
I will certainly be able to give you a lot of attention. It's a small class, so I know last year I had 22 students. Believe it, I had 22 students, and I had students that were really, and some students were very low quality work, but I had some students that really did some good work. And one student, she was messages all the time she's asking me, oh goodness, oh no. And then she did a wonderful job. So she did wonderful work. So that's, so send me, just start sending me stuff. Start sending me stuff. That's the way you're gonna get, I'll get back to you. Get back to with feedback, direction, boom, let's work on getting this stuff out. And if you want, I can show you, I can show you some of the stuff that students did. In terms of your, I think I can just come to campus or come somewhere. You guys, we can meet somewhere. And just transfer into my, and I'll just get it from you. Then I don't have to worry about how do we transfer it. That's fine. So where do you guys live?
Where?
Yeah, where do you live?
I live in Nishi Tokyo.
Where?
Nishi Tokyo, Tokyo.
Nishi Tokyo?
Yeah.
Nishi Tokyo, and you?
Maybe you don't know. Do you know Hirai? Is it, yeah, Edogawa Ward?
Oh, Edogawa-ku?
Edogawa, yeah.
Oh, I live in Kotoku.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
near.
Yeah, so I could probably walk to you. Hirai, is that near Edogawa?
Near, yeah.
Is it near Edogawa? I'm trying to think.
Arakawa, do you know Arakawa?
I mean Arakawa, not Edogawa, Arakawa.
Yeah.
It's near the Arakawa.
Yeah.
It's on the east side. It's on the east side of. Yeah. Isn't that near? Is it near a place where there's like an ice skating rink in the winter time? Is that in that neighborhood? In the summer it's like a pool, but in the winter it's an ice skating rink. I'm trying to think if that's. But I think I could have an idea of where that. Yeah. Anyway, so I know I had a student last year. There was something up in Saitama, and they had a neighborhood. It turned out I had done some work in that neighborhood. I'd actually walked through it, so some consulting work, and I'd walked through the neighborhood. So it's like, if you think I don't know, I might know better than. Yeah, Nishi Tokyo is like, there's a place called West New York. There's a West New York in New Jersey. It's, for me, it's like Nishi Tokyo. It's like West New York. And I know it's not a very big. Let's see. What is it? It's not Kichioji. It's near Kichioji. It's Kichioji. Yeah. Well, so we're in the same, if you're gonna be over there, I don't have to come all the way over here, and we can come and meet here, so let's just stay in touch and plan on doing that, so. But, so let's keep let's probably try for the 27th, for you guys to finish. You know, your schedule is very tight, and you have to go. Are you leaving right after the 3rd when you get your visa? Have you gotten your visa yet?
No,
That's your appointment, is to get the visa.
Yeah, appointment. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I know you have to make the appointment and line up and the whole.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I have another student that had to go back to China to get his visa. He's transferring to the U.S. Into a university in the U.S. in the fall. So I think he's been in China to get his visa. So as well, hopefully that's not too complicated. So okay. So I'll look forward to your stuff. Start sending me stuff. You know, I want to see. We need to see a lot of progress by next Monday. We have class on Monday. Definitely real progress by next week. So definitely, guys need to focus, especially you two. You need to do a lot of focus on this. So you're gonna go from here. It's gonna like take off. So okay, I can look at that now.
How did you get these numbers?
That is that's from the tables. There's tables on capital formation. It's on the tables. It's tables. Just go through. I can tell you what those tables are. There's so much information. It's like you could see. You can get so much information. It's all, you know. But that is in the national accounts. That's the national accounts data. So I can tell you what the tables are all the same. So every country has, the great thing about the UN data is they make every table, they label it exactly the same, you know, so you can go from table to table, country to country. So it makes it, that's one of the reasons why I like that. I think it's a great tool for students because there's a lot of things that they've standardized so you can get to these sectors, you can get this information and understand it very quickly.
To analyze Chinese study investment,
Yeah.
I want to know in which country China invests.
The FDI, you'll definitely want to go. Oops.
I can find this kind of data.
Let me just go right. Go back. What happened to it? There it is. See that? The UNCTADSTAT. Just copy that and paste it. It's great. That's a great database. Fantastic database. That will touch a lot of, and China is really interested. Really interesting because you'll see stuff flowing to Singapore, Hong Kong. You can see where the money is going offshore. You can see where it's going to Africa. It's great.
I can find a specific.
It's all each country. Yes, it's fantastic. So it should show. It should give you at least some idea because you know China's making a lot of investment in Africa. A lot of real interesting investment. So yeah, it's great stuff. You'll have fun. Thanks.
時間遅くしてもらってるかそうだね